Hello, and welcome back To Lead is to Learn, the podcast where we explore the dynamic world of leadership together. Whether you're a returning listener or joining us for the first time, I'm truly grateful you've chosen us as your companion upon your leadership development journey. Our mission here is simple: to empower you with the knowledge, skills, and insights needed to excel in leadership. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to welcome each of you, whether this is your first time or you're a regular listener. Each of you are a valued member of our community. Your trust in us is invaluable, and it's a privilege to contribute towards your growth. Speaking of growth, did you know that To Lead is to Learn is brought to you by Lambda Solutions? At Lambda, we specialize in leadership development and coaching, dedicated to empowering individuals like you to become the best leaders possible. If you're ready to elevate your leadership skills, or if your organization is seeking guidance to achieve its leadership goals, I encourage you to explore the Lambda way by visiting our website at www.thelambda.co.uk to learn more about how we can directly assist you. Thank you for being part of our community. Together, let's continue learning and growing. And remember, following and sharing our podcast can help us grow our community and impact even more leaders. In today's special episode, we will be talking to an experienced leader about their experience of leadership, challenges they have faced, and any thoughts and visions for the future.
I've barely been outside of the state of Pennsylvania, let alone out of the country by that point in my life. About 2009, 2010, I'm in between jobs. My phone's not ringing. I don't know if I'm going to sign another contract because I'm a free agent and I'm waiting for the phone to ring. Plans are useless, but planning is priceless. School, at least here in the United States, is just setting you up to go work at a job for the next 50 years. Unconscious incompetence is what most people's problem is, and they're asking themselves the wrong questions. People come to me, especially entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs all think they're so damn smart. And they say, well, man, I finally got tired. I finally had too much of this. I finally realized I got to do something different. You don't need to go to your high school reunion. Or they're the same people that they were when you left. They just got older, fatter, and uglier. Which means you're 1 second closer to dying, which means you are not the same person. And every once in a while, they slip through the cracks and they make it, but most of the time they don't. If you want to build a business, you got to build yourself.
Without further ado, here's Dre Baldwin, founder of Work on Your Game, working with the top 2% of performers to maximize their game in 3 key areas: performance, consistency, and results. So I tried to start off each of these conversations with the exact same question, and that is that everyone has a story as to how they got to where they are now. So can you just give us a run through of yours?
Sure. You want the 30-second version or the 30-minute version or somewhere in between?
Let's go somewhere in between.
All right, I gave the 3-minute version. So Dre Baldwin from Philadelphia, PA, now based in Miami, Florida. Background, always into sports, played a little bit of everything growing up. Finally got around to basketball around age 14, which is pretty late for someone trying to make it in a sport, like to play in college, let alone to play professionally. I only played 1 year high school ball, walked on to play college ball at the Division III level, which is the third level tier, talent-wise, I guess you could say, of sports. And most of the pro players come from the Division I. I was down in the basement of Division III. So getting out of college, nobody was checking for me to play pro. And I had to basically hustle and sell my way to get my chance. So this is graduated college in 2004 to give everyone a time frame here. So by 2005, the following year, I went to this event called an exposure camp. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that or your audience is. Basically like a job fair, but for athletes. So you pay money to go to these events. They are destination events in that industry, and you basically play your sport and try to prove that you're good enough to be a professional player. Hopefully you impress somebody. I was able to impress someone at that event. And well, I impressed the scouts at the event. So they wrote a good scouting report on me. I got the footage. I took that footage and went and found me an agent. I basically had to pitch myself to a bunch of agents to get one to represent me. They work the same as literary agents or entertainment agents. Got an agent. He got me signing my first contract. That was in Kaunas, Lithuania in 2005. At the same time, I took the footage from that exposure camp. It was on this thing called a VHS tape. Some of you know what that is. If you're any Gen Xers listening to this, you can, Gen Zers, not Xers, Gen Zers, go ask your parents or Google it. They'll tell you what it is. So I took that VHS tape, got to put it on a data CD, and I uploaded the footage from that tape to this new website called YouTube. Again, this is 2005. And YouTube said you can put as much footage up as you want. So basically I had two careers going at the same time. And so at this point, I'm playing basketball overseas. I'm traveling overseas, meaning outside of USA. So I'm traveling to other countries playing, and I'm randomly putting videos on YouTube. This is not a business thing yet, the YouTube thing. About 2009, 2010, I'm in between jobs. My phone's not ringing. I don't know if I'm going to sign another contract because I'm a free agent and I'm waiting for the phone to ring. And I started really focusing a little bit more on this internet thing that I had. So I had a website, I was blogging, I was putting videos on YouTube, and the players who were following me started asking questions about the mindset pieces behind what I had done. Why did I keep practicing? How do you get the confidence of performing the game? Why keep trying when you were facing all these setbacks? So I started talking about the mindset things. And as I did that, an audience of people who were not athletes started finding me and saying, well, Dre, the stuff you're saying when it comes to discipline and confidence and mental toughness, that applies to us too. And we don't play sports. So that gave me the light bulb moment, Chris, that just said, hey, I can take this piece of what I've learned from sports and I can apply this to people outside of sports, because I always knew I wanted to do something outside of sports when I was done playing. I didn't want to become a trainer or a coach after sports. So as long as I could play, I would play. But after that, I wanted to move outside. So luckily the phone rang again, kept playing until 2015. But by that point, I'd already had 5 years, as I just explained, of laying the foundation of building an audience of people who were not athletes, kind of honing this message that became work on your game, of the mindset pieces that worked in sports and how they applied outside of sports. So when I stopped playing in 2015, I was able to hit the ground running. I wasn't starting at zero. I had some momentum going as far as building my brand and my audience and all of those things. I already had books, courses, et cetera, started speaking. And for the last almost 10 years, that's what we've pretty much been doing full time, working with entrepreneurs and professionals, extracting the tools that work in sports mentally and strategically and applying them in business and in everyday life. So I think that was longer than 3 minutes, but that's the story.
I think the first thing that struck me from that was having to move abroad to pursue your dream. So that's going to take a lot of mental strength yourself just to get yourself around, because moving outside of your country, moving literally halfway around the world to then being able to play. So how did you deal with that first?
That was the funnest part. And that was the fun part, being able to travel, because it's not like you're paying for it. So the team pays for it. But I had no apprehensions about that. I was actually excited because I had barely been outside of the state of Pennsylvania, let alone out of the country by that point in my life. I've been a couple places, but haven't really traveled. So to be able to get on a plane and go to another continent just because of my ability to play basketball and get paid to do it and keep playing, that was the funnest part of the whole thing. The hard part was finding somebody who was willing to fly me over there. That was the challenge, but getting over there was fun.
So you had obviously your sports background, and
yeah,
at the same time you had your internet thing. So what inspired you to pursue the internet side of things, uploading the videos in the first place?
Because I'm a computer geek. I've always been a computer geek. I just happen to be good at sports at the same time. I happen to be tall enough that I can play basketball. So I was always into computers, even as a youth, even before basketball. I remember my family got our first home computer, desktop computer. I was in maybe 6th or 7th grade. And I would play chess on the computer, and I would be on AOL Instant Messenger way back in the day. So again, Gen Zers, y'all really don't know what that is. So I used to be doing that stuff always on computers. So I knew that computer stuff, I knew there was something in there for me. But at the same time, I always had this athletic ability. I'm not the type of person, I can't sit at a desk all day. I sit at a desk a lot of the day now, but I wake up early in the morning, I work out, then I can sit at the desk. But I can't just do this without getting out there and physically moving my body. So that was where the internet, and then the internet came along a little bit later. So the internet existed. We're talking like mid 90s, like 94, 95. But then when the internet, when I say web 2.0, the internet where you could kind of make your own websites, and it made it very easy for anybody to do their own things like Yahoo GeoCities and that kind of stuff, chat rooms, those kind of things. That's when I said I knew I was going to have a future on the internet, because I wasn't a coder. I wasn't making any software. I wasn't doing anything like that. I wasn't launching Amazon. But when I saw that there were platforms where you could kind of take your own ideas and your own thoughts and your own words and just put it out, and then other people can see it, and then they'll know who you are and you can engage with them, I said that part of the internet is for me. So that was kind of the web 2.0 era from about 2002 to about 2010, before we started saying social media, and then it went to a whole different thing. That's the part that I knew was for me.
It sounds very much like after a while, you almost became a mentor to
Absolutely.
People online, people you'd never met before. You were suddenly this mentor role. So
absolutely. Yes.
Did that surprise you that you were that?
It did not. actually. When I first put the video on YouTube in 2005, 2006, and people started just finding the video randomly, because it's not like I put it out there with some grand scheme and metadata and SEO. I didn't know what any of those terms even meant. I just put the video out and people found it because there wasn't much on the internet video wise as far as how to practice basketball. So people were just looking for basketball and I just happened to be there. So then they said, hey, who taught you? How often do you play? Who are you? Where are you from? And I realized, oh, wait a minute, there's an opportunity here, because I had a cheap little $100 camera at the time, Chris. I started bringing it with me to the gym and I would just put it on the bench. I didn't even have a tripod. I just put it on the bench next to the court and just let the camera record everything I did. And then I would just take pieces that looked interesting and I would put them up on YouTube. That's how I started. So when people started responding, and people in the comments was sometimes refer to me as their coach or as their mentor, even though I never saw myself as that, I didn't mind it because I understood what they meant. They're like, hey, you're the person who is helping me from a distance, even though you don't know me, you're helping me from a distance and learn the game. So, and I said, okay, well, if I can get some attention for doing this, I didn't know what I was going to do with the attention, because at this time there was no money to be made off of it. But I said, okay, I'll keep doing it. No problem. I work out every day anyway. So why not? Just put the content out. Then it led to the writing and the books and the courses, et cetera, et cetera. So was I surprised by it? No, because Chris, I always had this ability to articulate. I've always been able to do a thing, but I can explain how and why I'm doing the thing, which I thought everybody had that ability. But when I started doing it, I realized that it wasn't a normal thing.
And then you had people contacting you about your approach and your work on your game approach. So can you give us a quick run through what work on your game is?
Sure. Well, it started based on just the mindset piece. And it was the discipline of showing up every day to do the work, confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to occur, and the personal initiative to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And that was how it started, was just talking about those four things. And when it comes to working with business people and entrepreneurs that we do today, we expanded that out to the strategies, systems, and the accountability. However, the foundation of what we do here at Work on Your Game is and will always be that mindset piece.
Did you know that Lambda Solutions is your gateway to unlocking the secrets of effective leadership, as well as exploring leadership psychology? We not only have this podcast where we explore some of the most topical concepts within leadership and connect you with the wisdom and experience of a community of leaders, we also have a growing treasure trove of leadership wisdom just waiting to be discovered. I would love to invite you to explore the Lambda Library, our very own hub of thought-provoking articles and blogs, carefully crafted to spark your imagination, challenge your thinking, and ignite your leadership potential. The best part? It's completely free, and we are continually looking to update our content to keep you engaged and informed. It's all part of our dynamic journey of learning, and we can't wait for you to join us. Whether you're a budding leader, a seasoned professional, or simply looking to enhance your leadership skills, our content caters to your growth. We would also like to extend our hand. If you have a message to share and would like to submit an article to our library, simply get in touch through the contact form on our website. We would love to add your wisdom to our leadership library. Are you ready to begin your exploration? Simply visit our website at www.thelambda.co.uk and navigate to the Lambda Library. You'll find our growing library of leadership articles waiting for you. You can then add us to your bookmarks to supplement your sources of consistent, high-quality leadership content. Discover insights, uncover strategies, and elevate your leadership game. So for our listeners who are either trying to establish themselves as a leader, trying to get a leadership position, or maybe they're just in a leadership position, they're quite experienced, but they just want to grow and get better. How can each one of those be used by them?
Great question. So the first thing is people are trying to, anytime someone's trying to achieve an outcome, what I like to do is create a roadmap in reverse. So we basically reverse engineer the process. So that's part of our, these days, what we call a strategy, the second piece of our framework. And the way it applies through what I just said is to get any type of result, you usually are going to get that result from the outside world, because you can't just serve yourself by just trying to serve yourself. You serve yourself by serving others. As Zig Ziglar said, you help other people get what they want, you get everything you want. So any rewards you want, the success that your listeners want, they have to produce a certain result. In order to produce that result, you must perform at a higher level at what it is that you do. And the way we help people perform is, first of all, you got to understand what game you're in. What business are you actually in? In the sports world, there's a business there. In podcasting, there's a business. In writing books, there's a business. So you have to understand what business you're in and understand what the real game of that business is, which is often not the same as how it looks from the outside looking in. So you got to make sure you have the right insight as to what you really need to do to be successful in that space. And the performance is a result of being prepared, and preparation is a form of discipline, and discipline creates the confidence for you to go out there and perform. So working backwards from rewards, you got the results. Results are a result of performance. Performance comes because you are confident. Confidence comes because you are prepared. Preparation is a part of discipline, and discipline is a result of structure. So it starts with putting the right structure in place. And this is the reason why people have courses and programs and systems and coaching and trainers. The reason that those industries exist is because what those people and programs represent is a structure that, if you follow the structure, you will be disciplined in doing the preparatory work, which will make you more confident to go out and perform and produce results, which will get you the rewards you want. So in that order.
And I guess if you're a leader, you've got two elements of structure that you need to have. You need the structure in place for yourself to get better, but then you also need to implement structure for others to get better as well. So that's quite a big responsibility on you.
Yes, and it depends on what you're having other people do. Because if you're showing people how to do the exact same thing you do, all you have to do is just flip it around and give them the same thing you give yourself. Now, if you're giving them something a little bit different, then it takes other dimensions of thinking, but they can be figured out as well. So people who, once you figure out one structure and how it works and the framework of it, then you can create structures for pretty much anything. That's kind of the place that we're at in my business right now. That's where I'm at, creating structures for pretty much anything, because I understand how to deconstruct it and put it together.
Like, one of the things I quite like quoting is that the hardest part of running a marathon is actually getting off the sofa in the first place. So that's the first step. And sounds like, for me, like from your model, the first step is sitting down and figuring out what are the stages you need to go through. What's the first, the second, the third, the fourth, in order to get the results and then to get the reward from it.
Yes, I would say that that's true. And you could do it. You could start at the beginning. You could start at the end. For me, I've done it so many times on so many different subjects, Chris, from the sports world to the mindset stuff to the business stuff. You could pretty much drop me in the middle of it and I can figure it out. So I've just done it so much, it's become kind of like it's natural to me. And really what we're trying to do now, actually, now that I'm talking about it, is I'm trying to create systems to create systems. So that I can take all the things I understand and we can start mass producing these systems, because if I had to do it manually myself, I'm going to run out of time.
So what is your process then? You get dropped into somewhere. What's your process to sit down and come up with the structures?
Well, the first thing I do is figure out what problem I want to solve. I start there. I start at the end. So what problem is it that I want to solve, and for whom do I want to solve it? So I'm just looking at the market, and that could be just my audience. It could be the market of people who don't even know me, and figuring out what problem do they have that I can solve, and I can explain to them that I know you have this problem and I've solved it. And once I figure that out, then I decide, okay, what pieces amongst all the stuff that I already have. It's kind of like, you ever see somebody work on one of those really big jigsaw puzzles? Like, I have all the pieces. So it's just a matter of which pieces do I want to use in order to solve this problem. I got every piece you could possibly need. It's just a matter of which pieces do I grab? Which 20 pieces do I want to grab to put into this framework that's going to help these people solve this problem? And some of those pieces might get reused over here or over there or over there. It's just a matter of which problem do I want to solve. And then again, I want to create a system that can make the system so that I can start making these like easily instead of having to do it manually. That's the biggest hump we're trying to get over right now, as a matter of fact.
So you said you got all these jigsaw pieces. Do you have any like champion pieces that seem to get used more often than others?
No, absolutely. Yes. So these pieces that we already talked about: discipline, confidence, mental toughness, personal initiative. The mindset pieces, we always end up coming back to mindset, because what happens, Chris, is a lot of times people come to me, especially entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs all think they're so damn smart. And they think they don't need the mindset. They think, I get that you have the mindset stuff and I know it's valuable, but I need some structure from my business. I need to learn how to launch a course. I need to learn how to write my book. I want to learn how to get coaching clients. And people will say these kind of things to me. And then once I start working with them and showing them what they need to understand that they didn't even know that they didn't understand, then I show them, I said, you understand how this is a mentality? This is not a strategy. This is not I need to tell you what to do. Most people think that the biggest problem between where they are and where they are not is somebody just has to tell me what to do. Somebody told me what to do, then I would have this solved. Well, that's not really the issue. The issue is you don't even know what you don't know. It's unconscious incompetence is what most people's problem is. And they're asking themselves the wrong questions. Because a lot of times people, they feel as if, in my experience, this happens all the time. People come to me and they say, okay, well, I got these 15 questions. If someone would just answer these 15 questions, I'd be good. And then I look at the 15 questions and say, you can get the answers to those questions on Google or YouTube through my content for free. I won't even charge you for it. But see, answering these questions will not get you where you want to go. And I'll ask them, where do you want to go? And they'll tell me where they want to go. I say, answering these questions won't get you there. So my superpower is insight. And insight is about helping people understand the questions that they don't even know that they need to be asking. Therefore, they don't ask them. Therefore, no matter what answers they get, even though they're the right answers, they're the right answers to the wrong question. So that's the biggest challenge that I find that people having is making sure that the right questions are being asked. But until someone humbles themselves to understand that there's something that they're missing that they're not even aware of, then you can't help them.
So really, your superpower is asking them the right questions to establish.
That's right.
So if someone out there, a leader, is listening and they're struggling with, let's say, motivating their team, what questions would you ask them?
Well, the first question is motivating the team to do what? What do you want from the team? That's the first thing I want to ask them. And then let's say they come up with an answer, whatever it is. And then I'm going to ask them, okay, what have you been doing in order to get to that outcome? And they're going to tell me, and I'm going to say, okay, well, how's that working? What kind of results have you been getting? What do you like? What do you not like? And is that still the goal? If that's still the goal, then all we had to do is change whatever they've been doing. Clearly hasn't gotten the outcome. Because if it was, they wouldn't be talking to me. So I'm going to make sure they understand that. I may not say it in that language, depending on who I'm talking to. And once they're clear on that, now they're open to have their previous way of doing things replaced with something new. But they have to be open to it. So as long as they're open to it, then we can start exploring and looking at other things and trying other things in order to solve the actual problem. And everything is measured against the outcome. Because what I tell people, the phrase we use all the time here is that this is a performance and a results-based business. So you're asking me what are some of my pet things that I use over and over again? That's one of them. Is that everything is based on performance and results. It's not based on your feelings. It's not based on anybody's opinion, not even mine. It is based on what produces the desired result.
So in terms of the discipline that someone needs to do something, so obviously it needs a lot of discipline to be able to reflect on yourself and go, okay, what I've been doing isn't working and I need to change that. And I need to then pursue that and be disciplined with that and not fall back into my own ways.
That's right.
You're saying that there's not an element of feeling there. So could there not be an element of feeling within the person as to that's why they go back to that comfort zone?
Yes. When I say it's not feelings, what I mean is we don't make decisions based on feelings in terms of looking at what we're doing. Is this working? Is this not working? Working is not based on what I think or what you think. It's based on here's the baseline, here's the goal. Is what we did getting us to the goal, yes or no? That's a black and white. It's not a feeling thing. So that's what I mean when I say it's not about feelings. And to answer your question, however, the answer is yes. People do end up going back to their comfort zones, which is why people, I mean, if you had an audience of, let's just take everyone who's listening to the show. So let's say there's 100 people listening right now. I would say everyone listening to this, is there some aspect of your life in which you know you need to make a change and you have a pretty solid idea of what the change is, yet you haven't done it? Everybody's going to laugh at themselves and say, yes, of course. So why aren't you doing it? It's because of the feelings, because of the comfort zone. Because it's easier to keep doing the thing that you know doesn't work because you're familiar with it rather than it would be to go into the abyss of the unknown and doing something different. And just to break the inertia. I mean, the law of inertia says an object not in motion shall remain not in motion until unless acted upon by an outside force. So that stagnation has to be broken by an outside force that is stronger than the stagnation. And the challenge is it's very hard to break stagnation. There's another one that you ask about these pet things. So when I bring them up, I mention them. Most people don't change. And I tell people this all the time. I say, if you're over the age of 30, you don't need to go to your high school reunion. All right, they're the same people that they were when you left. They just got older, fatter, and uglier. They're the same people. Nothing changed about them because people don't change. And because they have to break their inertia in order to do something different. And most people are not even aware of the concept of this, let alone are they willing to do anything to break it.
I like that reference to the law of inertia, that they need an outside force. And I guess that's why they're coming to someone like you to give them that push.
Yes, that's true. The thing is, you can't make them come to you. See, that's the thing. So my job, or someone like you or anyone else out there, our job, we're like the waves beating against the rocks. We got to keep hitting them and hitting them and hitting them until we catch them at the right moment when they are open to doing things. Because I don't know how it works for you, Chris, in your business, but in my business, I get people who come to me and I say, well, how do you know about me? How you find out about me? And they're like, man, I saw one of your ads 3 years ago and I've just been on your list and reading your emails. And I'm like, well, why now? Sometime in the conversation, why now? Why are you coming to me now? Why didn't you come to me 6 months ago? Why not the day you heard about me? And they say, well, man, I finally got tired. I finally had too much of this. I finally realized I got to do something different. And it's been 3 years. So you got to catch them when they're ready to move, or they got to finally have a conversation with themselves first before they can have a conversation with somebody like me. So that's kind of like the work. And hopefully my job, ideally, is we want to collapse that time frame as best we can. So it's my job through conversations like this one and emails I send out, the content I put out, to collapse that time frame in people's minds. So that's, pretty much the job of copywriting. That's the business.
Yeah. It's making sure, I guess, the message that's being said hits them
exactly
at the moment they're thinking about it.
Right. And in the right way to move them to actually do something, because I might have the right message for you today, but you're not ready to hear it. So unless I give you that right message 6 weeks from now, when you would be open to it, if I'm gonna give you the right message in 6 weeks, I'll miss you. I miss the bus.
You've got the law of inertia and people don't change. I think working in like businesses and organizations, that if you don't change, it's not that you're not in motion. If anything, you're going backwards.
Yes.
You're falling behind everyone else and your talent might go elsewhere. Your customers may go elsewhere because you're not changing. So there is going to be people out there listening that need that change. They just need to be aware that actually, why did that person leave last week? And they could be listening to this and it might be because they just haven't approached something in a new way.
Yeah. So it's the law of inertia. There's stagnation on one end and momentum on the other end, but momentum goes both directions, like you just said. And when people think that they're stagnant, like you said, there's no such thing as being stagnant as a human, because every second you're getting older, which means you're 1 second closer to dying, which means you are not the same person. So you're either moving forward or you're moving backwards, you're growing or dying, you're building or destroying. There's another one that I use all the time. So there is no stagnation. So when people say, I want to maintain the status quo, well, that's impossible. You can't. You got better or you got worse today. It's one or the other.
So we've got the structure in terms of, we've now had these people come to us, let's say. They're put in place a new structure, something that they have to follow. Discipline obviously comes from them. They're the only person that can be disciplined, and it's working on their discipline. The next bit you said in terms of the mindset was confidence.
Yeah.
So that confidence to put yourself out there, that's pretty big.
Absolutely. It's become so normal to me that it doesn't seem big, but now that you say it, yeah, it is big, because most people don't have it.
Especially if you're doing something that's outside your comfort zone and you're having to put yourself out there in front of people that are going to judge you, people that you feel like they're going to judge you.
Right.
That's a huge thing. And obviously you've come from, a background of basketball and other sports. So you've had people watching you perform on a regular basis before you came into this.
That's right.
I've got a background in sports as well, so I'm used to that. But I guess there are people that wouldn't have had, like growing up, people watching them and critiquing them, people shouting from the sidelines, moaning about stuff and saying you didn't do this, that and the other. So
right.
How can someone build their confidence then, especially if someone's over 30, like you said?
Right. So, the first thing is the discipline. Discipline creates the confidence of doing the work. And the other thing is when it comes to actually getting out there. So let's say someone's an athlete. What was your sport, Chris?
I was football or soccer to you.
Okay. So football or soccer. Let's say a player hears what I'm saying here and they say, okay, I'm going to go get a trainer and they're going to practice. Now it comes time for their first soccer match. Well, there's no practice for the match. Right? I mean, you can practice like the skill, but you can't practice the environment of the match. So, Dre, what's the answer to that? Answer is, I tell people you borrow your confidence, because I'll give you a quick story. I talked about this in one of my TED Talks. It was a basketball player. He was in 11th grade, maybe the 10th best player on the team. Basketball team only has 12 to 15 people. So this guy was mediocre at best. One day in practice, coach says, today I'm going to make each one of you pretend to be one of your teammates all day in practice. And you're going to show each other what you do well, what you do bad. So whichever player I assign you to be, whatever they do well, you do it. And whatever they do poorly, you do it. Because you are going to show each other who you are, so that you don't hear it just from me and you don't think it's just me being negative as the coach. I'm going to let your own teammate tell you who you are. So the players are like, okay, this is interesting. So this storyteller, his name's Tucker, he gets assigned to be his teammate, Mike. Now, Mike just happened to be the best player on the team. So the assignment is this guy who's the 10th best player on the team. He has to go through the whole practice being the best player on the team. So my question to you then, Chris, before I tell the rest of this, how do you think he did? Good, bad, same?
I think he probably outperformed himself and was good just because of that confidence mindset that, he would get by going, well, I have freedom to be the best.
Yeah, and you're right. He did. That's what he did. He outperformed his normal self, played like the best he had ever played in his life. His teammates were looking at him like, where's this coming from? Because he was doing stuff he never did before. And what he had tapped into is what we call the super you. So the super you is our framework for confidence. It is you still being yourself, but is at your highest possible level of confidence. And the last thing that you said there is the key to it, is that the coach's assignment didn't give him skills. He already had the abilities within him, because you can't just get skills in 30 seconds just because the coach said, okay, you're the 10th best player on the team. Today, you're going to spend the whole day being the best player on the team. And then you just automatically do it as if he already had the ability. The coach didn't give him any skill. It was the coach's assignment gave him the freedom to no longer conform to being the person who he thought he needed to be for everyone else. And that's the key to confidence, is dropping things. It's not adding things on, it's dropping things. In our world, especially because we're so interconnected and we're on these things all day, we tend to think that anytime we have a problem, we need to add. Let me get something else. Let me get more information. Let me get more help. Let me watch another video. Let me listen to another podcast. Let me read another book. And it's not that doing those things are bad, because listen, I sell those things, so I hope you buy more of them. But the thing is, a lot of times when we want to advance, we need to drop stuff. We got to get rid of things. We got to unlearn some of the garbage that we have learned, and we have to drop some of the identities that we have accepted for ourselves. And when you drop that and give yourself the freedom to not be who you've always been, then everything happens. The breakthrough happens. And you realize that you didn't need to add anything extra. You already had it in you.
I guess that's something that's learned through our education systems all the time as well. If someone's labeled as like a C grade student compared to like an A grade student, they're for the rest of their life going to think that they aren't the best. They can't be the best because they're a C grade student, because that's been labeled when they're younger.
Possibly. It depends on their internal wiring, because some people are C-level students and they're happy. Like, I was a C-level student and I graduated college with like a 2.6. But I laugh about it because I knew by the time I was in like 11th grade high school that I'm going to go through the system, graduate high school, graduate college, because I needed college to get myself ready for basketball and just the social experience of college. I knew I wanted it, but I wasn't going through college because I'm trying to use my degree, so to speak, and go get a job that's based on what I did in class. So I don't care about it. Whereas someone else who's trying to, let's say they're trying to become a college professor. Well, you got to be really good in school. You got to get really high grades because you're going to need those recommendations to get into graduate school. And then they're going to look at your grades when you're trying to apply for a job. So it depends on where you're trying to go with it. But I get what you're saying. And the other thing is, as you brought that up, I want to make sure I say this. The Latin root word for education is about bringing from within. That's what education means. It means to basically enlighten someone by bringing to the surface what is already inside. Whereas the educational system that we have these days, especially in Western society, is all about putting more things in you. So it goes right along with what I just said, that confidence is not about putting more stuff in. It's about bringing out what's already in there.
And from our experience of sports, like when we've had our coaches doing sports, like most of the time they might stop practice and then they'll come and ask you to look at the picture and go, are you doing the right thing? Like, what would you do now given the time? And I think that's, like you said, that bringing from within, that's the difference between sports coaching and the education system in a classroom where information is thrown at you.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And Also, a lot of coaches will tell an athlete, hey, you're overthinking. You're thinking too much. Just in practice in basketball, sometimes the coach would just yell at us because we're trying to run the play the way it's supposed to be run, but we're playing so robotically. The coach would be like, hey, play basketball. Still do what we're supposed to do, but at the same time, play how you know how to play.
So then we get to the mental toughness bit, going through your 4 mental routes. So mental toughness, what does that look like to someone? How do we know someone has that mental toughness? What do they need to be able to do to be mentally tough?
Well, Chris, if I was asked what's the most important piece out of all of these things that I do, the most important asset, let's say, for me personally, and that I would say other people need, I would say discipline. But if I had to summarize the entire philosophy into one term, it would be mental toughness. So people can understand the juxtaposition between those. Mental toughness is all about mentally putting yourself in a position to where you can deal with whatever is coming, even though you don't know what's coming. And the way you do that is, number one, through discipline, preparation, because when you are mentally prepared for dealing with whatever happens, then whatever happens, you'll be able to deal with it because you prepared yourself for that possibility. So mental toughness, if I want to get more specific on it, more granular, it's about continuing to be disciplined and continuing to be confident, even though the results that you expected from being disciplined and confident have yet to show themselves. So if I tell you, if you follow these 18 steps, you're going to get results, and then you follow the 18 steps and you haven't gotten a result, will you keep showing up the next day? That's mental toughness. Can you keep showing up even when the success you've expected to achieve is late to the party? And that's where a lot of people come up short. To go along with what we talked about earlier, the only reason I became a professional athlete, Chris, is because I was mentally tough enough to keep trying when a lot of players quit. Because I was not the most talented player. There's a baseline level of talent you need to be a professional athlete. I was above the baseline, but for every one player who plays pro, there are 10 who are above the baseline. So only about 10% of qualified players make it pro. I was qualified. And the only reason I made it pro is not because I was head and shoulders above everyone else, is because I kept trying and I kept looking for different angles to get in the door when the first door was not open, first door was locked. And a lot of players who I know, they just stopped trying because the first way that they tried didn't work, and that was pretty much all they were going to try. And I saw this happen with people in all industries. I knew people in the entertainment space, same thing. Entrepreneurs, same thing, who tried something, didn't work the first time, and they didn't try again. And the people who keep trying, again, assuming a baseline of ability, they're the ones who usually end up winning.
I say 2 words sprung to mind as you're going through that, and that was consistency and resilience.
That's right.
Like you said, showing up even when the results aren't there. And I think there's an element as well of showing up even if no one's watching, because you have to keep going.
Oh, absolutely. That's more than a footnote. That's the whole thing, especially in sports, because in sports, you can't just show up for the games. Most players are not that talented. There are a few out there. I'm sure we both come across a few who just showed up to the games and they just dominated because they were just so good. But often they don't make it. Every once in a while they slip through the cracks and they make it, but most of the time they don't. I was, again, willing to do the work. That's how I became good at basketball, by practicing by myself. And it's the same thing in business. It's the same way. Are you willing to consistently show up and do whatever it is that you are supposed to be doing, even when nobody's there? Are you going to keep putting out your show, even though your audience is not whatever size? You're going to keep publishing your YouTube videos. You're going to keep writing your blog, even though you don't have readers yet. Are you going to keep doing the things? So by the time that you get good through practice, now the audience is there. So now you can give them a show, because they probably didn't want to read your early stuff anyway.
And I guess as well, there's an element in that of the self-talk that we give ourselves. Like, we could be having a bad day outside work, but we still have to show up.
Absolutely. I mean, that is, again, that's also not a footnote. That's a big thing. Can you continue to show up even when things are not working the way that you want them to work? And we have a whole framework built around that called the 3rd day. How do you show up and give your best effort when you least feel like it? Because we all have days when we don't feel like it. Anybody has kids, all right, you're going to have plenty of days and you're not getting any sleep. All right, you play a sport, there are going to be days you don't feel like practicing, but practice is on the schedule. You're an entrepreneur, you just launched a product and you thought this product was going to be the one that made you a millionaire and nobody bought it. Are you going to keep showing up? Can you keep showing up? That is the resilience and that's the consistency. So those are huge pieces of mental toughness.
especially for leaders who know that other people depend on them.
That's right. When you're in that leadership position, everybody else is looking at your energy and none of them is going to be as good as you. So you can expect everyone else to be about 80% of what you are. So if you're not there all the way, what do you think the rest of the team is going to do?
And I have an analogy for, like, in terms of the sports leaders, there's different types of leaders. So you have like your manager, the main coach in front of the team. You have your other coaches, maybe your fitness coach, the one that comes along, just make sure that you're consistently doing it. You have your captain on the pitch, the one who steps up. And then you have the one that's on the sidelines. That's not even on the pitch, but they're the ones giving a little bit of impetus, a bit of support to the team.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got your 4 different types of leaders. What do you think about that?
Tell me those 4 types again.
So you've got the main coach.
Uh-huh.
You've got maybe your fitness coach, the one that's in the background.
Right.
You've got your captain on the pitch. And then you've got your leaders off the pitch, the ones on the bench.
Right. Yeah. And I think is in any organization, you have to have some people who are an extension of whoever the main person is. And this is, kind of the reason why corporations are designed how they are, so that you can have, you got your managers, you got your middle managers, you got your C-suite executives, because the main person can't watch everybody all the time. And they don't want to be the person who has to answer every question. So you want to build leaders from within, and you want to grow your team such that you are promoting leaders from inside. And every organization says they want to do that. McDonald's says they want to grow leaders from the inside. They want their franchise owners to be people who started working on a fry machine. So that's the whole point, is a good leader should be producing other leaders. This is why, you familiar with the book Good to Great by Jim Collins? In that book, he's studying companies that were successful over a long period of time. They went through multiple different CEOs, but the companies continued to grow. And there were other companies who had these superstar CEOs, but those superstars were not good at building other leaders. So when the superstar left, the company's performance went down. But when the company is building up leaders the proper way, one CEO leaves and another CEO comes in, and the growth continues, because it's the organization that is successful. It's not just they had this one superstar player on the team, so to speak.
So when we're talking about like the big dog, they're going to need a level of discipline that's above everyone else, in a sense, because they need to show up and everyone's watching.
That's right. Yeah. So when I think about that, I just think of did you see the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance?
Yeah.
Yeah. Michael Jordan embodied that. And he even went as far as even saying it in so many words. So he knew that if he showed up every night and demanded things of himself, then he had the license to demand things of his teammates. And his teammates have echoed that. They said, hey, this guy showed up in practice every day. He would go out and play the whole game, score all the points, pull the game out in the last minute for us. And then the next day he's in practice playing like it's a championship. And if he was doing that, well, what could I do? Now, I had no choice but to show up. And then when he yelled at me and pushed me, exhorted me to work harder, I couldn't push back. There's nothing I could say to him, because he was setting the example every single day. And Michael said that. Said he knew that if he did that, he could hold them accountable. And if everybody did it, we were going to win. And they won. So, maybe not everybody agrees with his choice of words and his style, so to speak, of how he led, but no one can question the results. And as I said, we're in a results-based business. So in that business, he was successful by any measure.
Yeah. But then if we go to the other sort of side of things, so we have like obviously the main person in front of the team, and then the star player. They're the ones that everyone's looking at. When the team wins, it's always the best player, or like the person in charge of the team that ran the team really well. But then you have like your fitness coach, made sure everyone was ready to actually perform at the level they needed to. And you've got the players on the bench that are given support that, when called upon, are ready to put in the shift. So there's still that level of leadership, and there's that level of mental toughness that they have to go through, in the fact that, oh, I'm on the bench again, or I'm still doing the work behind the scenes, but I'm not getting the recognition. But they need that mental toughness to get through still, despite the fact that they're probably not getting the praise heaped on top of them.
Yeah. And what you just described there, Chris, the story of every entrepreneur who hasn't gotten the results that they want to get yet, is they're doing the work and they're, whatever their grind is, but they're not getting the results yet. So they're kind of on the bench, so to speak, and they haven't blown up to a big audience of people yet, or gotten the result that they want yet. But you have to keep doing the job, because if you don't, then nobody's going to know about you then. So you just got to stick with it and stay in the game until your opportunity comes, and be ready when it comes, so you can take advantage of it.
Which is the next one with your personal initiative, in a sense, isn't it? As soon as your opportunity comes, or you've had a word with the coach saying, put me in, I can do this.
Yeah. So yeah, personal initiative. If someone asks me what's the number one asset when it comes to the business side of my life, when it just comes to my life period, just me, Dre Baldwin as a person, I would say discipline. But when it comes to the business side, it's personal initiative. So when I got out of basketball and I wanted to get into business, I didn't know what I was going to do at first. First thing was I want to do professional speaking. Once I found out there was an industry for that, and I took a lot of initiative. I made a lot of cold calls. I left a lot of voice messages and did a whole bunch of free speaking just to start building up some momentum. A lot of free gigs led to paid gigs. So I started to build up some momentum, get myself known, and doing TED Talks. And I've done 4, but I've applied for probably 50. All right. So 4 out of 50, all right, in order to get those opportunities. So it's just continuing to do things to put myself in a position to win and take an initiative. And I had to do it also as an athlete, because as an athlete, as I told you, nobody was checking for me when I got out of college. So I had to go check for them. Usually agents call players because they want to represent you. I was calling agents. So I had the whole thing flipped around because nobody knew who I was. So just being that person who takes initiative and gets the ball moving in order to create some momentum. And the willingness to take initiative is based on the discipline to do it consistently, the confidence in believing whatever it is that you're pitching so that people will see it, and the mental toughness to keep trying even when the last 2 times you took initiative, nothing happened. So these 4 pieces all kind of work together interchangeably.
It almost feels like one holds up the other, that holds up the other, and then
that's correct.
Right at the top is your personal initiative. Because without mental toughness, you would never have applied for the 50 TED Talks in order to get 4.
That's right.
There's one that we haven't really spoken about yet, which I made a note of, the extra 3 that you said, and it was accountability. So what does accountability mean? Because I think that will play a big part in leaders and leadership.
And accountability is about making sure that both the processes and the people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. So most of the time when people hear accountability, they're thinking like having a coach or a trainer or a drill sergeant looking over your shoulder and making sure you're doing your job. And that is part of it, of course. Accountability is also making sure the process itself, because if we have a process, like I told you, structure creates discipline and confidence. We got to make sure that that structure is doing its job. Because if I'm following the structure exactly as it's designed, but I'm not getting the result, then we must hold the structure accountable. We got to hold the process accountable because it's not producing the desired result, even though it's being followed. So we had to make our adjustments. And this is why strategy is not just step 1 through 10, because we know that plans never work out exactly as we plan they're going to work out. And I tell people plans are useless, but planning is priceless. Because the time you spend planning, you can think about what may not work. And when things don't work, what pivots do we need to make? What adjustments do we need to make along the way? And that accountability piece also means we got to make sure that we have some measurables in here so we know tangibly when something is working and when it's not working. So this is another reason why I said earlier, it's not about how anybody feels or anybody's opinions, because you can't measure feelings and opinions. But we can measure stats. We can measure dollars. We can measure baskets. We can count the numbers on the scoreboard at a sports game. So accountability is really literally counting what's working and what's not. And that's the whole purpose. And you have to have clear ways of measuring so that everybody is on the same page. And this is what, anyone who's an accountant, I mean, that's literally what they do. They take count of what's going on, and they have practices and measures for making sure everything is where it's supposed to be. They do double entry to make sure that if they make a mistake, they catch their own mistake. That is what accountability is about.
So I guess for leaders, it'll be holding people accountable, but then holding themselves accountable. That's, like you said, the processes. If they're not right, whose responsibility is that? That's them, because they designed the processes, they enforce the processes, and they have the power to change them.
Yes. And also knowing, even when they put the process in place in the first place, hey, everybody understand here that this is the process that we're putting in place, and this process is subject to change if and when it is not producing the desired result. So we're not going to follow this process because I'm the boss and I said it. Following this process is the best that we see from where we stand today. But as we get results, we will adjust this process as necessary, because the goal is this. The goal is not doing what I say. The goal is achieving this outcome.
I think that differentiation you just put there is key. The focus on the goal at the end rather than on the process. Because
that's right.
I think too many times people in organizations have heard, oh, well, that's just the way we do things around here.
Right.
And that's focusing on the process, not on the outcome.
And this is something that I tell, like when I hire new staff to work for me, Usually I'm hiring them to do something that I know how to do. I'm just basically offloading the task. And I will demonstrate to them, this is how we do things when it comes to this job that you're now doing. However, if you know of a better way to do this job, let me know and we will adjust it to your better way. I just need you to show me how your way is better and how it helps us get to the outcome more effectively. If you can show me, then we'll make an adjustment.
And that's hiring talent for the fact that you know they have talent and they're bringing something in rather than just there's a person to do a job.
Yes, assuming that they might not have the talent. Maybe they'll just follow orders and do what I'm doing. But I'm always encouraging them, hey, if you see a way we can do this better, then I want you to show it to me so we can make this better. The goal is this. I always tell them that whenever I'm delegating a task to someone, I not only tell them what to do, but why we're doing it. So when they understand why, they may be able to see, oh, well, you're doing this, but you're taking 3 steps when we could do it in 1 step if we just change this piece up. So that's why I always explain to them why we do things, and assuming they have any initiative. And you got to encourage it, because when you're working with somebody, it's hard to speak up if you don't think they'll be open to it. But you encourage them, hey, let me know if you see something that can make this better.
And that brings up an interesting point, that you have a background in sports and you went all the way through that. And then you started up your own business in a sense, and you've been hiring people and you've been growing. No one taught you to run a business.
Yes.
So where did this skill set come from? How did you develop this? Did you from day one start implementing this process, or was it something you learned along the way as well and adapted?
That's a great question. So we have to go back in the story here. So it started actually when I was in college. I responded to this bulletin board posting. And again, Gen Zers, a bulletin board is like the internet, but a physical version. All right. So there was a bulletin board on my college campus that said, make some extra money. So I responded to it. Turns out it was some guy doing network marketing. Now, I didn't stay in network marketing, but I did dabble in network marketing. And I am very thankful that I did, because that's one of the main foundational pieces of why I became an entrepreneur. Because when I went to those meetings, first of all, I noticed that the guy on the stage was explaining some principles of income generation that were not being taught to me in college. And I have a 4-year business degree from college. And the things that they were teaching in the lecture halls at school sounded nothing like what this man was saying on the stage, even though what this man on the stage was saying made perfect sense. So I'm like, why aren't they teaching this in school? I didn't understand. I understand now why they don't teach it, but I didn't understand then. And that led to me reading a couple books, because this guy was not only talking about business principles, but also personal development. Because he would tell the people in the room, because half of them were already doing the business, if you're going to build a business, you got to build yourself. That also made perfect sense. I never heard anybody say that before. And I'm like 21 years of age at this point. I've never been exposed to this information. And he mentioned a couple books. I went and got a couple of them on eBay. This is back before Amazon. So this is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. That introduced me to personal development, that you can consciously and intentionally alter your patterns of mind to alter your outcomes. And then Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And he was explaining, hey, if you can go this route, which is the route that I already knew, the route that I was on. I was literally a college student at that time. Or you can go this route. There's another way. You can create assets that put money in your pocket, even when you're not the one doing all the work yourself. And that I kept in the back of my head, because, again, I went and played basketball after college. It's not like I went and started a business. I went and played basketball. Then in that period, when my phone wasn't ringing, about 2009, 2010, I revisited what Kiyosaki had said. I had just read Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week. And I said, okay, I have a way now through the internet that I can create some assets for myself. And that's when I started creating my own products for basketball players at first. These are $4.99 training programs for ball players. And then the YouTube videos, now you can make money. If your YouTube videos get viewed, you get ad revenue. That's when it first started, around that time, 2009, 2010. So now I have these assets. Now I can make money without having to physically do the work all by myself. Because as an athlete, even though it's a great job, you are the asset. As soon as you stop working, the money stops. So it's still a job. A lot of people don't realize that, but it is a job. So that's when I started doing those things. And that's what Planted the Seed for Entrepreneurship. And as far as answering your question here, Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Work Week, he is the first person I heard ever talk about the concept of delegation. He's the first person I ever heard say, you can live in America, but you can hire some guy in India who you've never met and pay him $8 an hour, and he can do all these jobs for you. As long as you explain it to him properly, they'll do it. And he was the first person I ever heard say that. And all my staff is in the Philippines. I don't have anybody from America who works for me. So that's where it came from, is just understanding that there is a way to do this, and just having a mindset that is open enough to even look for these types of things. Just the fact that my mind was open enough to respond to that little bulletin board that said, make some extra money. Most people look at that and say, no, it's probably a scam. No, I'm good. I'm in college. What I need extra money for? I'll wait till I graduate. I was open to it because I could see that the path that I was on, and I was looking at my classmates in college. I said, I'm not like these people. We're all in the same grade. We're all about to get the same degree, but I'm not like them. And I realize now what I couldn't have articulated back then, Chris, was that school, at least here in the United States, is just setting you up to go work at a job for the next 50 years. I didn't want to do that. I knew I didn't want to do that. So when I saw that bulletin board posting, I said, this may be a different way. So that's what I was looking for.
Yeah. And I guess that was the first time personal initiative, which you said in terms of that's your main one within your business, that personal initiative, that then kickstarted that whole process.
Yes, just the fact that I responded to the guy. He talked about whatever he was talking about. And then what's funny is he disappeared. I don't know what even happened to that guy, but I'll even tell this part of the story. So this is in college. So my college is 3-4 hours away from where I'm from. I went to school in Altoona, Pennsylvania. I'm from Philadelphia. I go home to Philadelphia that summer, right? This guy who introduced me to the whole concept network marketing, I didn't hear from him again. He had disappeared. I'm calling him. He's not answering the phone. I want to find out what he's doing, but he's nowhere to be found. So I'm at home in the summer, and my mom is downstairs. I'm in my bedroom. My mom is in the living room having a meeting with one of her friends, this other woman who I know her because my mom used to run a childcare business. So I know the woman's voice because my mom used to watch her daughter. And I hear them talking, but I don't care. I don't need to talk to this woman. I'm just listening. And the woman starts mentioning that same company that the guy introduced me to. She was in the business. And she was at my house trying to pitch my mom the business. She was trying to sell my mom on the business. I overheard the conversation. I run downstairs. And the woman's like, wow, because she hadn't seen me in a long time. She hadn't seen me since I was a child. And I said, I heard you mention XYZ business. Are you still doing that? I said, I want to get in. So she came to the house to try to sell my mom, but she ended up getting me. So that's how I actually got into the business. I just overheard her talking about it.
Which I guess is a bit of luck and coincidence in a sense.
Yes.
Which everyone listening needs a little bit of that, as well as this discipline. Everyone needs that luck, but you just have to be open to the opportunities that come along though.
That's right. And my ears were open because I was looking.
So if that had happened a year before, you probably wouldn't have had your ears open. You probably wouldn't have run downstairs. You probably wouldn't have run into the room, and that opportunity wouldn't have manifested itself.
Yeah, probably not. I don't know what I would have done, but who knows? Maybe she would have. Who knows? Yeah, I don't know what would have happened, but that's how it happened. Yeah.
Unlock your leadership potential with personalized one-to-one coaching from Lambda Solutions. Take the first step to empowering yourself to overcome any challenges and lead your team to new heights. Our coaching services provide consistent support tailored to your goals and challenges, guiding you through the uncertainty and leading to growth. But that's not all we offer. Our consultancy services extend beyond coaching, encompassing a comprehensive approach to leadership development. Explore our bespoke consultancy packages, which include coaching as a fundamental component. Or if you're seeking something even more tailored, contact us directly through our website to build a solution perfectly suited to your organization's needs. Visit www.thelambda.co.uk to discover how Lambda Solutions can help you to reach your leadership potential. Together, let's learn, grow, and elevate your organization to a new level of success. So I want to go back to the sports side 1 second, because obviously you have a background in sports. I'm a firm believer that a lot of leadership skills get developed when you're younger through sports. What's your thought on that?
I think that's 100% true. And this is why a lot of parents send their kids to sports. Well, one reason, because they just want to let them burn off some energy. But another, if they're thinking about it more strategically, is the kids learn to respect authority, they learn discipline, they learn organization, they learn structure. You learn all that, especially when you're playing a team sport. I didn't do any solo sports. So when you're playing a team sport, you learn all that stuff, and you have to interact with a lot of different types of people. And you're competing. So you learn how to win, you learn how to lose, you learn how to take instruction, you learn how to take constructive feedback. All of those things you learn from sports. And I think some parents, a few, are thinking about it on that level. I think most parents are not. They're just like, let me just put him into something or her into something so they can be off my hands for an hour or two and burn off all that energy. But when you're thinking about it strategically, those are all benefits of playing sports.
Yeah, I think the mental toughness also comes into it. Like, I'm just thinking about the moment in the locker room before you're about to walk out onto the pitch. Like, the coach has said what they've needed to say, and you're there with your thoughts for the next minute, 2 minute or so before you get the bell rings, and then you have to suddenly take yourself from here to here.
Mm-hmm.
Is that mental toughness of waiting, then with the sudden, now I've got to perform. I think that comes into so much in business. Like, if you're thinking about going and pitching to someone, you've got that waiting. Okay, now I'm on.
Yeah.
I think there's an element of that you can't recreate in a classroom. You can't recreate in college. You can't get elsewhere.
Yeah. And I think you can't even recreate it in business, what you get in sports, because sports is more visceral simply because we're using our bodies. Whereas in business is more using your mouth. You're just talking. So I don't think there's any equivalent to walking out on the pitch or the basketball court for a game that you get in business. The closest I've ever gotten is like professional speaking on the stage, but it's still not exactly the same.
And then at the end of the day, after the competition as well, once you've finished the game and the result is there, it's that level of respect to the competitor. If you've beat them or they've beat you, it's still that level of respect you've got to show. You learn to show your competitor that. I guess within business, you don't ever see your competitor. It's you're trying to sell something. You're just trying to outsell someone else, but you don't get that realization. There's someone else over there that's doing the same thing as you, and you are up against them.
Yeah, you might see them at a conference or something, depending on what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't see them every day. I get what you're saying, unless they're the business across the street. Other than that,
in which case, I guess that's very very challenging times if you're across the street from someone and you're trying to get the person through your door, not the other door. That's
yeah. My car wash against your car wash. Yeah, that happens in small towns, not in big cities like where I'm at, but in small towns, yes.
So you've done a lot of obviously mindset work and working with people. Have you done any professional coaching qualifications? Not like sports coaching, but like coaching, one-to-one coaching qualifications behind it? Or have you learned all this and done all this yourself?
I've learned all and done all of it myself. I actually tell people in my audience, I actively tell them that they don't need to go after certifications, as a matter of fact, because certifications, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having them if you have them. But certifications are a way of climbing a ladder. It's almost like a version of college. Is that you got to climb this ladder, and after you climb this ladder, you get this certification, you get this letter or this mark next to your name, and that's us telling you that you are now qualified to go and get into business. But the problem with it is, the fundamental issue with certifications is whoever created the certification has control over whether or not you are qualified to go and compete against them. So that it seems like a conflict of interest as far as I'm concerned. So I'm not really a certification type of guy. And so as far as my coaching, it's all been developed just from my ability to listen and communicate, which is half listening and half talking.
If you were to try and suggest the sort of people that you work with in terms of coaching, because obviously people will like put themselves down as like life coach or career coach, like what sort of coaching would you say you do?
Yeah, it's a good question. People ask me that. I don't really have an answer. Just coach, period, because everything is part of life. So I don't know a career coach is a life coach because your career is part of your life. And then you got business coach, you got fitness coach. I think if I had to call myself a coach, usually I'll call myself a business coach just so people understand I'm looking for entrepreneurs. Because usually I coach people who are making a certain amount of money based on what I charge. They need to fit a certain profile. but I would just call myself a coach, period. And it's really a top performance coach. I coach people who are high level performing individuals because to work with me, you already had to be performing at a pretty high level relative to the average person.
So what does high performance look like to you then? Someone walking through the door, obviously there's money coming in the door, but
Of course.
what else makes up the high performing profile that you then work with?
People who hold themselves to a high standard and or they want to be held to a high standard to perform at a level that is far above what the average person expects of themselves or what the average person produces. So these are people who understand I'm looking for people who see themselves as or want to be exceptional.
Would you say you're looking for someone who's like you?
They don't have to be like me. No, but they need to be someone who is, they look around at their peers and they know that they have a way of thinking and a way of performing that is different than most people around them, or they want to be that type of person.
So that sounds to me like you, to be fair. From our discussion, I feel like that is you.
Yeah, I guess on a fundamental level, yes, but I'm just thinking about the people who I work with. I wouldn't consider any of them to be like me. Yeah, I guess, but we have to have some kind of psychographic alignment for them to work with me. I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you're a high performing person.
Yeah.
Very driven. You work on your mindset and you're willing to improve and grow. That sounds to me very much like the sort of person you want to work with.
Yes.
So if we're looking at performing at the highest level and consistently performing at the highest level, if we're talking about leaders in businesses, not the top CEO, not the boardroom, but those that are in charge of like a team of people, what sort of things do they need to consistently do in your perspective to perform at the highest level on a day-to-day basis?
As the leader?
As the leader of that team, yeah.
Well, of course, they have to show up and they have to do whatever their role is. They have to perform at a high level at their role, because if they're not performing, then they can't push anybody else or tell anybody else that they need to perform. So you can't ask anybody to do anything you're not doing. So that's number one. Number two, if you have people who are under your wing, so to speak, you have to invest in them on a consistent basis. You have to invest in your people. And this is something that I tell entrepreneurs all the time, especially like, let's say a solopreneur, they're hiring a staff person. They have one person working with them, and I only have two people working with me. You have to invest in those people. You got to talk to them on a regular basis. I talk to my executive assistant every single day. We have a conversation and we talk about what they went through the day before, what they're working on today. We go over stuff, any new initiatives, whatever it is that we're doing. And I'm training every day. I'm training them to make them a better, higher quality person for me and for themselves, because I want them to be a higher quality individual themselves. And I want them to look at their job with me and say, I am in a better position personally now than I was 6 months ago, because I've been working with this guy and he's been investing into me. I don't want them to only work there because they're getting paid, because people leave jobs when they feel like they're not growing. It's not because of the money. Sometimes it can be because of the money if there's a big difference between two opportunities, but most of the time people leave jobs because they feel they're stagnating. So I always want to make sure that whoever I'm working with is growing and getting better.
I like that you put invest in people as well. And as you went through it, the two investments, I sort of made a note down because I was thinking, okay, what investments are they? From what you said, it's time investment on a daily basis, and then growth investment as well, giving them opportunities to grow, which I guess could be giving them challenges, giving them new tasks, teaching them to do something a little bit better if you know how to do it better, like mentoring them.
That's right. Yes. So that's a consistent thing that I'm always, and you know, what's funny is, I don't know what day this episode is coming out, but we're recording this on a Friday. Usually on Fridays, I ask my assistant, hey, what can I help you with that is not work related for your personal growth, professional development? And I forgot to ask her today. So I need to send her a message when we get off this call. And I got to ask her because I forgot to say it to her. So maybe we'll talk about that on Monday. But it's making sure that they are growing and getting things outside of just the work duties and making themselves more qualified, just a higher quality person, not even professionally, but just a higher quality person. Because what I've found in my line of work, when people watch what I'm doing for long enough, like my executive assistant pretty much knows everything we're doing, that eventually they start thinking, hey, maybe I could do something, not maybe the same thing, but they get plenty of ideas because they've developed so many skills. They know how to do so many things. I've had assistants hired away from me, poached from me for 3 times what I was paying them, because I made my assistant so good that she was worth triple what she was getting paid. and she got hired away by another company. And it was annoying because I had to find a new assistant and train them again. And the new person wasn't as good as the person who had just left me. But at the same time, I look at it as a sign of respect, a positive thing, because the only reason she was good enough to get hired away is because I made her that good. Because when she showed up, she was not that good. So is the investment that you put into people will make them better in the long run.
And I guess in a sense, you've done your job as a leader because you've developed them, you've made them better through being in your presence rather than just keeping them in the same place because you need them to do X, Y, and Z.
That's right. Leaders should develop other leaders, not just followers.
Yeah. In terms of, you said the people that you work with they're overseas. They're obviously not in the same room as you. You don't have an office. You don't see them on a regular basis. They don't come into your office and sit down and chat. So how do you manage that remote relationship?
Well, they're not overseas. They're just outside of, not in my geographical area. So it's not like they're sitting down in my office. But how I manage it is, well, everything's digital now. So we have Zoom calls. It's like you and I are talking on Zoom right now. They have access to me via WhatsApp, so they can send me messages and audios and texts and links and things like that. And then we have regular conversations. So that works. And if they ever happen to be I'm in Miami, Florida. So if they ever happen to be in Miami or I am wherever they are, then I'll tell them, hey, I'm going to be in your town. Hey, let's sit down and meet. Let's have lunch or whatever the situation is. So it's not even usually even something that need to be discussed these days because people are so used to being on their devices all the time.
Because that does promote a little bit of challenges in some cases, because I guess if you're in different time zones, then it could provide a different challenge in terms of working hours and tying up together. So you said you got people in the Philippines as well. So you got to manage that relationship as well with those people that you have, outsourced to.
Yeah, well, those are staff people. So, and also, even if, let's say I had a client who's in the Philippines, well, they're a client of mine, so they're going to have to fit around my schedule. I'm not fitting around theirs. So I tell them my available hours are between 9 and 5 Eastern. And okay, you tell me what time you can fit then, or I'll send them my calendar. You find a time that works, and we'll make it work from there. So they would have to adjust themselves to fit whatever I'm doing, if that was ever an issue, but it hasn't been an issue yet with anybody.
So as a final sort of bit then, we've gone through your approach, the work on your game, which I think is really powerful. And hopefully the people that are listening to this are going, okay, yeah, I can sit down, I can start working through. And I like the way that you built it up all the way from the structure all the way through to, we got to the accountability element, which is the end one as well. So hopefully they're going to put that in place. But outside of the work on your game approach, what pieces of advice would you give to our listeners?
Well, number one is invest in yourself, not even in other people, but invest in yourself. It'd be the most important thing. If I was to go back and talk to myself 20 years ago, it would be learn the concept of investing in yourself and start doing it as quickly as possible. And that means the simplest way you can start is by consuming material that'll make you more valuable. And whereas back then you usually have to go to a bookstore and buy books, now you can get it without even paying and without getting up out of your chair. You can get it off YouTube, off podcasts, off blogs, but not the nonsense. So even though there's a lot of quality stuff out there, there's also the nonsense out there. So everything you do is an investment. It's either an investment that's going to pay you back in the future or it's going to cost you in the future. And time is the most valuable resource that we have. So what kind of investments are you making into yourself that is going to make you a better person tomorrow than you are today? And that's a question that every person should be able to answer for themselves at the end of every day. So that's the most important thing I would give the audience.
I like that, investing in yourself. And the warning you gave there as well, that every investment is either going to benefit you or it's going to hold you back somewhere. So,
right.
And that, in a sense, is the podcast name. It's learning. To lead others, we have to learn ourselves. We have to invest in ourselves in order to invest in others. I like that. So thank you very much for that.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking.
Is there any other piece of advice, or is that the main one
If I was to give one lasting thing, it's everybody has a game. I think I touched on this earlier. We all have a game, whether you're a maintenance man, a librarian, an athlete, a podcaster, or an entrepreneur, or you're just trying to figure it out. We all have a game that we're in. Your job is to figure out what your game is, figure out what it takes to play that game at the highest possible level, prepare yourself, go out there and perform and produce results, because we are in a results-based business.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been a fantastic conversation. I've learned a lot from just this discussion as well, and I know that our listeners will definitely learn a lot. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me on, Chris. I appreciate you sharing your platform.
And until next time, remember, to lead requires us to continuously